everybody, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Justin, John, Quindy, and whatever other disembodied hands want to show up, really. We'll take any disembodied hands we can get. How are you guys today? It's almost the end of the week. We're almost to the weekend. Thank you, M. Fontana. 21 months. You're almost to your double sub-anniversary. Almost. Almost. Just a little longer. Thank you very much. What do you guys think? Let's see. Looks like people are just here. Sending love. We appreciate finger hearts. Finger hearts are the awesome. Let's get over to camera. There we go. Excellent, Smithers. And there's stuff in the air this morning. It's overcast day here. So I need to blow my nose a bit. Hold on. It's going to be one of those days. That's all right. Whee! So anybody got any exciting weekend plans coming up? Or fun? At least fun weekend plans? David and I are planning to go into a coma. Since we had to do so many things with his parents last weekend. We did not get any Ann and David sitting around doing nothing. Just working. Oh, that's a bummer, Iffy. Work. Yeah, Julie, I hear you. Work. I am also doing a little bit of work this weekend to catch up after parental visit. But I've been pretty productive, as those of you on the Patreon have noticed. All right, let's see what we're doing. Now, I wanted to ask you guys what you thought. I kind of had an idea. So we got to fill in this freehand back here. I was actually thinking of not doing it in gold or silver, but actually doing it in a red and orange. Like doing these lighter things in a color, the color of the dress, instead of in a gold or silver. Because you're going to have some silver things on the front, but silver doesn't have a lot of punch when you're doing it like this. Because it doesn't have the contrasting color. So did you guys want, I was thinking I would try it in red, and if I didn't like it, then I'd just go gold with it. Or maybe a combo of gold and silver. But everybody does freehand in either gold or silver, it seems. And so I just wanted to switch it up, because I was already thinking this was a cloak of protection, so. D&D one-shot, Socrates. That sounds good. Oh, good. Yay, Reaper order. So yeah, this is what we did last time. We did the freehand. And the shield shapes are kind of because I thought it would be a cloak of protection. So if nobody has any other complaints, I'm going to try it in red. And then we're going to see what we see. If it does not work, or I don't like it, I'll switch it. But I think I do want to go in a bit more. The thing about doing it in red, though, is I need a very solid, very solid coat of white down first. Don't want any of that blue to... copper, yeah, because copper is very... Jedi, copper is really kind of washed out. It is a muted... let's see. Tarnished copper is a muted color, and bright penny copper is actually kind of an orangey pink. So I wouldn't want to do it, I don't think, in NMM. I more want to do it like it's glowing rune things. But we shall see here. I was thinking of just orange-red tracery, so I'd have to actually go over those little white block-ins that I did. Originally, I was going to just glaze and do gold, but now I'm thinking I want to glaze and do red-orange, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing red-orange, I'm talking bright. Because if you're going to do glowing runes, you've got to make it saturated. And because the bottom part of her red is so saturated, it will work color-wise. But I don't know if we'll lose too much of our blue, or if it'll look good at all. I just feel that a lot of gold would be out of place. Hey, Safaroko, you're back! Yay! That's great. But yeah, I mean, copper, if we were doing copper accents in, metallics or NMM elsewhere on the model, but there is no copper anywhere else on the model, so that's another reason I don't want to do that. So, if we had gone copper, if we decided to go copper with all of her fixtures, which technically we still could, though I'm not thrilled with it. And the reason I'm not thrilled with it is that copper is orange, and we're using a red color scheme. So orange is not we're a red, yellow, blue right now. So orange is not our best choice. As I talked about when we were talking about maybe making this liquid orange, and I ended up going more red with it, that's because remember, two colors are close to on the color wheel, they can clash. So going that way wouldn't be our best choice. Yeah. No, seriously, it is soul nourishing. Morning basement. So does that make sense, Jetta, where you wouldn't choose a color that's really close to your other colors? Because then we went yellow with the leather, too. And also it would be more muted, and we've got kind of a more saturated thing going on, and we don't have copper. Essentially, the way you could do copper, if I would have been going copper, I would have taken this leather more of a dark brown, like I took the staff. It's only done on the one side, but thank you, Safaroko. So yeah, if I would have wanted to go copper with my fixtures, I would have gone very dark brown with the leather, and that would have kind of given me a dark and neutral surface to work with some coppery accents over the top. Copper wouldn't be like a total no-go because of the blue. The blue makes copper somewhat feasible. No, you're fine. So yeah. But those are the reasons I wouldn't choose it. I wouldn't choose it because... And if I was going to choose it for the back, I would have to choose it for everything else, in my opinion. And that's my working strategy, and not everybody does that, guys. So, like, my answer is not the answer of other painters. So you could do it if you wanted to. And because of the blue, it might work. But I have this harmony thing with figures where I really want to repeat the colors over the course of the figure. I think it makes the figure hold together very well. As long as you have enough variety of color over the course of the figure and enough variety of light and dark. So I'm willing to tweak it sometimes with a small accent color, like on my halfling, where I went green with the daggers, which is totally outside of the established color scheme I had for the model. But it also was a complement of both of the other colors on the model. So I was pretty safe doing that. All right, let's get our white going on. I want to make this a little stronger before I pop red over it. And then I think I'm going to glaze with the red and just get an idea of whether I like it. And if not, we'll turn around and we'll do different colors of NMM. But no, your name's fine, Safaroko. I've never had a problem saying it before. The only time I shorten people's name on stream is if it's a bunch of numbers or letters or words, other words squashed together, and I have a hard time figuring out how to say it. If it's leet, then I tend to just cut it down. But when it's a word that I can actually pronounce, I see no reason. I mean, or if it's a compound word, like if Basement Forge, I'll call Basement Forge basement sometimes. He knows who he is. Or she. Huh. Old joke there, Basement. Old joke. Alright, I want a good brush for this sort of thing. I'm using slightly thicker paint, so I don't want to use tiny brush. Tiny brush is best for thin paint. When you are using thicker paint, and this is a 4:1, which is, you know, fairly thicker, I always use a bigger brush so that the paint won't dry on the bristles. It's an inverted proportion. I probably also need my Ritterlich for touch-ups. I also have to ask myself at this point if I want to fill in all these shapes that currently have open centers. Or if I want to just go for, like, lines. More like glowing runes or outlines. And I could do it either way. I'm kind of curious to see if I get a purple when I glaze the red over this. If I get kind of a purpley effect on the interior. So I'm going to go for it and see. There's certainly no harm in just checking out what the effect is when you do it this way. But I think I'm going to do it similar to the way that I do, like, gold NMM freehand setup, but just do red instead. Yeah, I think I do need my Riddler. The tiny brush. Tiny brush is fine for freehand if you are using really thin paint. So if you're doing your original, oh, not to be used a tiny spoon. I see, you're joking. Yeah, tiny spoon will only make you, you know, like blob. Tiny spoon is okay for blobs. Where's my Riddler? Let's see here. There it is. I just want to mix up my darks so I can trim up some of this design, make it really crisp. Yeah, that's it, Sephi. See, I remembered. I won't remember for a while though. The problem is Sephroko, that I'm used to calling you Sephroko. And I'm terrible with names. So that means it's actually like harder for me to get into the habit of calling you Sephi than to just call you Sephroko. So don't expect it to change overnight. All right, so let's do 4-to-1 on this Reaperlive as well. So when you're blocking in freehand, do make sure you've got both your dark and your light, and so that you can touch things up. I might actually go 5-to-1 on Reaperlive, just to make sure I've got a nice dark tone to go over the white. Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, they're all good colors. I just finished the second PDF on them, so now if you are on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/paintingbig, for the last couple months for the $5 tier, I have been going over those paints, talking about them a little bit, and suggesting uses for them and such. So, and including triads, like what you would shade and highlight with. I didn't really put it in a triad format, but it's what it amounts to. If they're not already in triads, or sometimes I just bring alternate highlights and shadows up. So thank you to everybody who has helped me out on my Patreon. It is my livelihood. It matters a great deal to me. And you guys are like super thank you. You guys are tops in my book. You let me keep doing this. It's the Keep Anne Out of Corporate America pledge. Alrighty. So just trimming up some stuff wherever anything. Yeah, I've always thought that we needed tiny spoon. Like there needed to be tiny spoons for sale because it really is the sculpting tool that I use all the time. And David also has gotten addicted to tiny spoons now. So, like, Bob and Julie, if you ever wanted to, like, you know, just produce a tool to, like, sell at shows or wherever, like, you should do tiny spoons. Because everybody wants a tiny spoon, but the only tiny spoons I know of are handmade. So what I'm doing here, guys, I'm coming with the blue, and this lets me thin these lines. It lets me get actually thinner lines than I could normally paint, just by painting up against the edge and making it a little slimmer. So if you want something to look very fine and elegant, the way is not to try to draw it on with your initial white or whatever you're using to block in your freehand. The way is to draw it on and then take your background color and come back in and slim down those lines. And then you can get some very fine and elegant work going on. It's much easier to take your background color and use it to make these lines thinner. Yes, Cult of Tiny Spoon. Yeah, as long as my Patreon stays at this level, I can stay out of corporate America. If I had to go back and get a real job, I'd have to stop doing this for Reaper too. So that's why I appreciate so much you guys, because those of you who have pledged, and many of you have, on my Patreon, because you really do enable me to keep doing, like, everything, including this show. If I had to get a real job, I wouldn't be able to do this show every morning. So it all matters when you are a starving artist type. Alright, so I'm narrowing down and thinning down some of my lines. If I notice that some are kind of wobbly or they're not quite the curve that I wanted, I'll use it to correct that. Enablement. That's cool, Francis. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be stuff too that maybe you can't use right away, right? Like maybe I'll do a thing on a topic that doesn't help you right now. And then it's, but if you, down the road, the chances are at least 1 month out of 2 or something, you're going to have something in there that you can use. And as you progress as a painter, you'll be able to go back to some older content that maybe you didn't get a lot out of before, and maybe you'll get a lot out of it. I mean, it's just like reading books. You read a book sometimes at a certain age and you're like, well, I don't know why that thing is horribly overrated, and then you go back to it later and it resonates with you a lot more. And it's just because we're always growing, right? We're always changing and growing and becoming better people, hopefully. I'm an optimist, so I believe we are. And so time gives us a perspective on stuff and makes different things useful to us at different times. So just sharpening up some of this little face almost anchor design. I lost a little bit of it there, but I can redraw it. But yeah, I really appreciate everybody's support. It really does make it's a huge game changer for me. The only thing that lets me do all this stuff. There we go. Slice that back in. So I will often do this. What I will do is I will sketch in, and there's a video on this eons ago, like 2 years ago on the Patreon, is when I was working on my crystal brush entry. And I show how I sketch in the design, and then later I show, I think I put up photos to show you how I changed it afterwards. So often I will do this initial sketch, but then I will come in and either strengthen the design and crisp it up, which is the more common thing. Or if I've blorfed it, if I've made like a different, like I haven't done it right, I'll actually change large portions of it. On Sacrifice, I changed large portions because I realized I was trying to copy a given design and I'd actually done it backwards on part of it. Which when you're doing really complicated designs is pretty common in my experience. You kind of flip part of it in your head and you don't quite grok it right away, so I will often do this where I get in the sketch, I like it, but I could always tweak it a little bit, and before I paint it, I'll make it stronger, tighter. Because think of it as the first part really is a sketch, and then when you go to do the finished piece, you kind of go and tighten everything up before you go, or as you go. Hey, Dogfather, thank you. 18 months. Nice. With Prime, even. I am so impressed. I am always impressed with Prime subbers who do it, like, months in a row, because I forget so often. Oh, okay. Oh, Sephroko, yeah. Oh, okay. That's good. At Fry's. Sephroko, all the sculpting tools we use are usually not sculpting tools. Okay, not all, but a lot of the sculpting tools. You talk to any traditional sculptor, they're going to tell you all the crazy things they've picked up over the years to sculpt with. And most of them are not sculpting tools. Like, that was my experience when I started talking to sculptors. They're like, yeah, this is a dental tool. This is an embroidery needle. This I just picked up at the hardware store, and I'm not sure what it's good for, but it's good for me to do this texture. So, cuticle pusher sounds like pretty much par. Par for the course. I have learned that everything is a potential sculpting tool, is what I'm trying to say. Thanks, Dogfather. And then Bob and Julie, who can make their own tools also. Many sculptors do make I know Gene made his own tools for a while. Now with the push to 3D, of course, you know, you're seeing less of the traditional, which is a shame, because there are still some things that traditional sculpting does better than 3D, in my opinion. Hair being one of them. There we are. All right, we've almost got it here. Just trying to make sure all my lines are nice and solid. It's very bold now. So we can get to our glazing. Now, this is not a closed design, which is to say that there is, there's not a border around the entire thing. The blue goes into it at various points. So I'm going to have to watch that. I think I am... I need to correct this part real quick. Or make it a little stronger. It's just a little weak. But yeah, if I was trying to do this with tiny brush, the paint would be bulking. It would not want to come off of the brush to give me these fine lines. Because thicker paint wants a thicker brush, typically. You need more body behind it to get your thicker paint to stay wet in your brush, in general, for longer. Yeah, exactly, Rhymer. I mean, that's still a thing. Like, everybody uses green stuff to, you know, fill gaps, resculpt parts, you know, convert, do all that. But sculpting from scratch with green is becoming much more rare. And people were noticing this, you know, even like 3-4 years ago. And now it's even more prevalent. Especially with the huge rise of 3D printing for the private individual. So now, if you are a sculptor and you want a large market and you want to start, say, your own business, it just makes more sense for you to learn 3D. One of, who was it? Was it Sergio? Somebody was talking, one of the top painters was telling me that at this point, don't even bother learning green. Like, if you want to get into sculpting, not corrections or, you know, conversions, or all those are still useful. But if you want to get into sculpting, this person said, don't even bother. Nobody wants to work with, and this is wrong because Reaper still does, but, you know, in general, what he saw in Europe was that nobody wanted to work with traditional sculpts anymore. Vast majority of companies want to work with 3D prints. Yeah, and green does have a steep learning curve. Well, so does ZBrush, though, you know? I guess there are a lot more tutorials online about how to get good at ZBrush, though, than there are about how to get good at green stuff. Some people were worried that green was a dying art. I don't think it is, because, as Reimer points out, it really is the way to, like, you know, convert or fix or adjust the miniature once you have it in your hand. But the days of it being the main star in miniature sculpting are gone. And, I mean, for the most part, I'm not, like, totally sad about that. Because it lets a lot more sculptors show you what they can do. Like, the growth of of Patreons, like, who are a team of good sculptors or, you know, one good sculptor, who before did not have an arena for their work, but now do, you know, you can get their stuff. Before, they would have had to, like, you know, get accepted by a miniatures company and work with the miniatures company, and there would have been more limitations on, you know, when you're putting stuff on mold like that, as opposed to printing it. There are different limitations. Things like that. And now these people can just go out and go, we get to go crazy and do the creative stuff we want to, right? So I don't think, like, it's not good or bad. It's just different. And I do love that there are so many artists out there now doing just fantastic sculpts that otherwise would never see the light of day. Yeah, Grey Wolf. That's kind of David and I, although he keeps muttering about if we get a house that we'll get a 3D resin printer. So we'll see, but I haven't yet had the talk with him to say, yeah, but cleaning those suckers, baby, it's all you. Although maybe he'd find it relaxing. He likes to build models. As I've noticed a lot of hobbyists do, some people enjoy the build more than they enjoy the paint. And David loves to paint, but he is one of those people who does enjoy the build as well, I think. He likes putting the people together and doing little conversions on them and stuff. Whereas I just want to take it out of the box and paint the dang thing. You can tell who's the lazy one in our household. Aw, bummer, Grey Wolf. Maybe you'll find a resin printer friend. I'm sure as they get cheaper and easier to operate, that more and more people will have them. At least people in the hobby. Like, I'm pretty sure that if we still had, like, Paint Club around here, or mini painter get-togethers, which we haven't for a while, that we would find that somebody in the Bay Area mini painting group has a high-quality 3D resin printer. But then you have to, like, you know, then you're trying to get them to print stuff for you and pay them to print stuff for you when, you know, you could print your own. I would rather pay somebody to print mine for me. But right now I'm on a, what is it, a moratorium when you no longer are allowed to buy something? I have moratorium to myself in miniatures. I have too many minis and I must paint some of them. And I've been a good Anne. I've not gone in on any new Kickstarters. I'm just trying to get some paint on the models that I've got. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice, Valandar, that it's come down so much. Yeah, Love is. I could probably, and Love and I get along, so I might be able to beg her to print some stuff for me. I have some patrons, too, who have offered, to be fair. But right now, I don't need any more miniatures. Yeah, my shame, well, we don't call it a shame pile because David and I don't believe in the emotion of shame. We call it the shelf or the pile of lost love. Or put aside, you know, the box of lost interest, I guess would be a good side note to the shelf of lost love. The shelf of lost love is when you start a miniature and then you just lose oomph and you're done. I don't want it anymore, you know. Maybe you start the model and then you realize it has problems and you don't have the oomph to fix it. Or you start the model and you're really enthused, but then you get distracted by something and then it sits on your shelf for 3 months and by the time you come back to it, you don't love it anymore. So it's yeah, the pile of potential. Oh, that's good, Clavicus. I'm going to steal that. Pile of potential. Let me write that down. Yeah, because there's the shelf of lost love and the pile of potential. I love that. Gold star to Clavicus. Pile of potential. Yay. That's a great term. But yeah, it's important what comes out of your mouth as far as your mental state, and if I called it the shelf of shame, I would start to feel ashamed of it. In fact, I used to. But now if I call it the shelf of lost love, it's just models I'm fond of, but I've kind of moved on. It's like a relationship. Yeah, I like more positive speak. It's true what they say, that if you let yourself say things in a more negative manner, it starts to affect your brain. It's actually in dog training, this is a thing. And that's the first place I encountered it, is that you shouldn't use no as your dog's reprimand word. I entirely switched to eh, and it made a world of difference because as a human, when you say no, your whole brain turns more negative and irritable. Like it really does change the way you're thinking. And with a dog, you've got to be patient, especially a puppy. So if you do the eh, it's more of a, hey, hold on. Okay, let's do something better than that, you know? It made a lot of difference. Like, I found that I was not getting frustrated with my dogs nearly as often when I switched to the neutral and didn't use the word no anymore. So if you have a dog that's a trouble dog, and you find that you get frustrated and angry with it a lot, try switching. Try switching. I really noticed a profound effect on my mental health when I wasn't yelling no all the time. Or just, you know, saying it in a terribly exasperated and angry voice. Because there are definitely times you want to kind of, interrupt or distract your dog or keep it from doing something bad. But it helps if you can keep yourself in a really good mental state when you're working with your dog. Oh, you have a new puppy coming. That's so exciting, Basement. I can't until we get a house. Whether we're renting a house or buying a house, whatever we're doing, we need a different place. We need a place that's close to grass and not upstairs. We've been looking at places, which is fun, I have to say. There's not a lot of new building here like there was in Texas, so it's entirely going around and looking at existing houses. And that is fun. Like David doesn't find it as much fun as me. I love it. I love looking at houses online and then, narrowing down which ones fit our criteria and texting our literary agent or our realtor about them to get the skinny. I love that stuff. I'm having so much fun. If we didn't buy a house for another 2 years, I'd still be having fun with this. Oh, nice. That's nice. Yeah, boxers are good, solid dogs. Yes, Nexata, use it on your kids. Yes. Just get in that habit. Or, some little noise that you don't normally make, but that has that whole, hold it, And you don't want to use a word like hold. You want to use that, a short, sharp sound that's going to distract the puppy and make it look up at you. And then you can go, good girl, come here, or good boy, or whatever. Or if you're talking to your kids saying, hey, let's do this, and get them away from the bad thing. You always need to make yourself the most fun thing in the world, though. That's how you get dogs and kids to listen to you. If you are the most fun thing in their world, you will have their attention when you need it. Hey, Rax, how's it going? She doesn't have a shield. This is a cloak. Oh, I did it. Actually, okay, Iffy. I have a humorous Reaper story, guys. Okay, humorous Reaper story. One of our employees a while ago, named Freddie, had a mom who bred corgis. And so he had grown up, in a household, a dog breeding household. And there was one day where I don't remember what he did, but honest to God, I did. And he was like, ah! He's like, my mom did that to me all while I was growing up. It totally triggered him. I was like, I just howled with laughter. I just lost it. I was just like, I'd never had a human. But if you grew up with a dog breeder mom, you bet your tail that you actually had that happen to you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a shawl. It's a shawl or a cape. It's whatever. It can be a cloak too. It's kind of like, kind of tacked on over here on her shoulders. Aka. Ack would be a good one. But you want to, whatever the noise is. I like a short noise because you can say it instantly. It's something that you can, it takes no time. It takes a millisecond. So I think ack would be a good one too. And some people do use ack. And so, I could see doing something like that. But that's what you want to do. And that kind of neutral noise just keeps you engaged with your animal or your child. It doesn't make you all negative. It doesn't, make you, when we say no, it tends to just get louder and louder and until we're yelling, right? It's easy to yell no, but you can't really yell eh. You can do it at a high volume, but you don't sound angry. You don't sound, negative. You don't sound, "Grawr, I'm gonna get you," right? Yeah, exactly. So that's my amusing Freddy Reaper story. There are lots of Freddy stories actually, because he was a very unique individual. But Sadie would probably have some. He's one of those people who was a very nice kid, but you just really did do the tech. You wanted to look at him and just do the Texasism. You just wanted to go, oh, bless your heart. But he was funny. I don't know. I liked Freddy. He had idiosyncrasies, but then who doesn't, Alrighty. I think we're ready to glaze the red over this. I think. Oh, I need to do those really tiny ones, don't I? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Nexata, I don't have kids, but I have lots of friends with kids. And I've watched how they manage their kids, and we've talked about it. We've talked about the similarities and differences between raising a puppy and raising a toddler. And there's more. They have more in common than you'd think. I mean, the dog has a harder time, like, opening doors, obviously. Although there are plenty of shepherds who have learned to open doors. But yeah, I mean, it's the same sort of thing, though. It's consistency and not losing your temper. And making sure that, you know, you are really, you know, you're the most fun thing in their world. So they want your approval. They want to please you. They want, you know, they're motivated to be with you, listen to you, and respond to you in a positive manner. I mean, it's so important. It's so important not to lose your temper. Like, there were times definitely when I was so stressed out in my past that I did lose my temper with my dogs, and I always regretted it. Because they're such, I mean, Shilohs at least are so sensitive. When you lose your temper, you lose trust. Alright, so that one's nice and solid. I'm going to put a really dark line down the middle here. Thin it down a bit. Give this little sword or cross or whatever it is wings. Yeah, Francis, I totally think whoever told you that was dead on. It really is, because then there's an amount of care to the dog, so you have to figure out how you're going to divvy up responsibilities, right? Which is, you know, sometimes can be a real sticking point. Like, I was the one who took care of the dogs for the most part in my old situation, and it did get old, right? So you like to understand those things before you get into the kids, which are going to last a lot longer and be a lot more of a drain and a joy. But yeah, I think that's very smart. And like I said, consistency and you know, guidance and trust and not losing your temper, all those things. Puppies are great training for that. And some people scoff, but it's a true thing. Or at least it has been true for me. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, maybe it is that she's the only girl, and so you've had to switch it up maybe a little bit, right, Nexata? Right, yeah, you can't just take off, you have to manage, yeah. I mean, it's kind of why, even though I miss Kiri, I am enjoying this time with David right now, because it's the first time in our relationship that I haven't had to worry about, you know, an ailing older dog. And so we're having fun. We're zipping off to Monterey. We're doing, you know, we're able to take a whole weekend and just go off with his parents for the whole day and not, you know, have to worry about being home to let a dog out or kenneling a dog, which is an extra expense. Yeah, so exactly. It's definitely a thing. So much as I'm excited to figure out where my new puppy is going to come from and which litters I'm going to look at, and, you know, because I gotta look at the Kiri descendants in the gene pool. But I'm super excited about a new puppy, but I'm okay with having, you know, another year just to kind of travel and not have to worry and to hang out, you know, to pretty much be with David without also worrying about another living thing. Kind of like when you get kids, your relationship with your significant other changes. And dogs change it a little bit too. You're always worried about an additional thing. Yeah, it is a lot. And when I had 4 dogs, that was too much. Like, never again. Never again. I could do 2. But 1 is all I'm aiming for at the moment. When we get the right place. Then, you guys, I will try to install a puppy cam. Maybe I'll get a splitter with my face cam. Face cam shouldn't need too much power. Maybe I'll get a hub and see if I can split my cam so we can have a tiny puppy cam and an Ann cam. Would you guys like that? I don't know where I'm going to put it on the screen. I'll have to, like, you know, switch it in and out for the Toolbox logo or something. But eventually I will do my best to get you a puppy cam when I get a new puppy. Because Shiloh puppies are just cute as the dickens. So adorbs. All right, let's do this red. Let's see it. Let's see how it happens. I've got a little bit. I'm using fire red. You could use any bright saturated red. Sione Scarlet would work great. Fire red's a little cooler, so I like using it as a starter and then bringing it up with Sunrise. The coolness in the fire red may also work for me if I want a purplish tone over some of these areas that I'm going to be filling in. This is an experiment. Usually, as I mentioned, when I do freehand, I tend to do panels and then just... I can put the glaze over the entire panel, but here we've got blue coming in around between shapes, so I'm going to actually have to be selective in my glaze and see what I can do with it. And I may leave it a little thicker. Some of these reds are a little bit translucent, so this is going to work for me in this. I might start on the big moon and see how strong this is. Yes, the puppy cam. Everybody votes for puppy cam. Yeah, why am I not surprised? Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. If you've got 7 dogs, like, you got to have an in-home pet sitter or a relative who's willing to come in-home pet sit, or, you know, you're going to pay a ton in kenneling fees. We used to kennel. Like, we would use, our vet had a big, nice kennel for our boarding. So we used to use that, but I still always felt bad about it. I would much rather have had a pet sitter, but you are paying a premium at that point. Although apparently the pet sitting business is super hot right now, so if you needed a sideline, if you were looking for a new job, yeah, in-home pet sitter for sure. That's what I think I'm going to start preferring. That way it doesn't stress your dog out. So let's put this red, and we're painting it over the edge and in the interior of the crescent moon. This is going to be our test. To see if I like the look. We're going to do the moon because the moon is easy to repaint if we decide we don't like it. So just pick, when you're doing this, pick one big, if you're trying a new thing, pick one area that's fairly simple and large enough to give you an idea if your idea is going to work. So what it's doing actually is making the interior more black. But do you see how the edge still shows up really nicely, even here on my second coat? And that's why you do the white underpainting. Is your shape will still show up well. That's interesting. This is interesting. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. There's a ton of people. I mean, CNOT has his puppy cam too. Oh, no. Yeah, exactly, Francis. Yep. Yeah, I just, you know, you never know. Because, yeah, you can totally have a genetic or otherwise pet health issue show up in your younger animal. I mean, as a past breeder, I know this very well. No matter how good, no matter how much research we do into breedings, and we do a crap ton, going back to data sometimes 10 generations in the past is what I factor forward for our breed. More often it's in the last 4 or 5 because that's the most useful data, but there are lines I've traced back to the founding to get a number, a percentage, the carrier risk of everything. And no matter how good you are, no matter how much research you do, genetics is a wild card. You're rolling the dice. You can always roll the 1, even if it's only a 1 in 20 that you're going to critically fail. It'll happen. All right, so now I'm going to grab this orange and I'm going to just drop a water into it. Mulberry cupcakes, interesting. Yeah, well, you're going to have, that's the thing, right, Polaris? There's only so many things in human design art. Like, as far as shapes go, you've got variations on circles, diamonds, squares, rectangles. You know, you've got variations on curves, you know, or like, this is just a changed triangle. This is a changed circle. You know, you can only have so many things. So inevitably, there's going to be an icon or a logo or something that a design reminds you of, you know. Like, you can't, there is nothing new under the sun that humans have not done. And so, the best you can do is to make it obvious that it is not the logo from whatever, you know, by diverting from it significantly, if it bothers you. Obviously, I'm not going for Star Wars on this one, so I would prefer, you know, not to. So I've taken it in a very different direction. Oh, good, Trey. So are mulberry cupcakes tasty, or are you baking them? I think I want to go with some orange highlights and see what this does. I may need to bring in more white if I want this orange to really show. I definitely want to look at where my highlights are. This is going to be pretty subtle out the gate. So I'm trying to put the orange where highlights would go, kind of. This is sunrise. The most bright, but also the highest coverage, brighter orange we have. Yeah. For sure, Kansas. For sure, Francis, rather. Yeah, I mean, I had a reactive dog with temperament issues. And it's the same thing. You just, your average pet sitter won't be able to handle it, nor will the dog respect them or want to come to them. So it's just not. So either it had to be a friend who was really used to the dog, who the dog knew, or it had to be either I or my partner at that time. All right, I'm going to grab some white and actually going to bring in a lighter orange by mixing sunrise with white. It tends to take it very yellow. Still just playing around here. I've got all the time in the world to play around and see if I like this. To see if it's interesting. I kind of think it is interesting, and it's definitely different from things I've done in the past. Yeah, it's meant to have room to it for expansions, Trey. So, like, essentially, if you like the paint, then you have lots of room. And even if you don't like to paint, it'll fit paints from other lines so you can carry your paint easily. A lot of us go to, like, or at least we used to before the pandemic, but a lot of us go to, like, paint clubs or friends' houses to paint. So, or if you ever go to ReaperCon, then having a convenient carrying case for your paints is really a nice thing. So that's why. That's why we give you extra room. You could also fit minis in it if they're small. Or I guess these, now we got the plastic inserts, so you can't. But when it was foam, you could. Alrighty. I don't know if, does the regular starter set come in one of the black pistol cases, guys? I don't even know anymore. It's been a while. It's been a while. Yeah, see, this is very interesting. This effect. I think I like it. I'm gonna actually go up and do these little teardrops. Or eyes, depending on how you want to interpret them. And yeah, doing an MM gold or silver would be a lot more, you know, standard. But also less interesting. And you still want your Ritterlick, because when you do a little bit... Oh, okay. Yeah, Trey. But anyway, you do want to keep your Rare Lake Blue still around because chances are when you're highlighting these tiny little things, you're still going to make little blorfs. And just a little touch of Rare Lake will tighten up your design, bring it back in line. This is kind of cool, actually. I think it would have been more boring if I had done it in NMM. No, Pendrake. Some regions will not stay white. Never. The white is too disruptive. What I'm doing is just working on one small area to see if I like it, and then as I decide I like it, I'm going to grow it in various areas. The white is purely a block-in. It's a sketch. You would never want to keep the white unless you were keeping, you know, touches of white highlight in a silver NMM. Then you might keep more white. But you would never want the white because it's going to distract. You don't even notice the crescent if you just look at the white. So you're going to lose the subtlety of the design if you leave the white. But I like this enough, I think. To just go in on it. Whole hog. There we go. So now it's starting to get all colored in. Yeah, totally. That's what we've been painting. Did you see mine, Miller? Hold on, because that's the genie, right? That we're almost done with, actually. We're almost done with the Yashana. Whoop. It's the one we've been painting. We just did the lamp last time. Or as I like to call it, the teapot. And then we're working on the back. We still have to get a little bit of the smoke down here, which hasn't had the colorful highlights. And I need to do this, the rump area, not to mince words. So maybe a little bit more highlights on the hair. But, and of course the base. So yeah, we got 1, maybe 2 streams left on her. But she came out really well. She's a really fun paint, and she's fairly simple, but she has just enough details to make it interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, Pendrick. I thought you were on earlier. If you missed earlier, then you missed me saying that this is a sketch. Like, I spent the first bit of the stream explaining that the white is just a sketch. You use the white so that when you put another color down, the color that you actually want the freehand to be, when you do this layer over the top, your design still shows up really great because of the white. Thanks, Miller. Yeah, so for those who did not show up in the first part, I just thought you were here, Pendrake. Sorry about that. For those who were not here for the first part, the white is purely a sketch. And I started, actually, with even a lighter, like a very lightweight white. Like, I thinned it a lot and just did a very, very faint sketch, kind of like a really faint pencil sketch like you do. Then you go back in and maybe you ink in your lines, which is me going back with my white and making my lines a little tighter and brighter. so that when you go over with your initial color, you retain the white. The white shows through and gives you that nice crisp design, a much crisper effect than if you tried to actually draw the design on with red. Hey, kangaroo. So there's definitely a method to the madness there on the white. You will always see me do freehand initially with white, even when I'm going to change the color. Lizette, who we're going to work on tomorrow, we're in the middle of doing the freehand on her dress. And I'm also glazing color over that to make sure that it doesn't stand out too much, right? So essentially, let me grab Lisette. When you do it with white, it stands out great. And you want it to stand out when you're initially mapping it in, because you want to get a sense of how well the design fills the space, whether everything is very clear. You know, you want to kind of work in your shapes and make sure that everything looks the way you want it to. But then, like here, I don't want to leave this white down here. It's just going to distract everything. Like, it pops out and grabs your eye way too much. So that's why we're glazing over it with green. So you'll still be able to see the design, but it'll be much more subtle. It'll blend in. So the attention, you'll still be looking up here, especially as I add highlights and tighten all the detail in here. Yeah, a good brush is worth its weight in gold in this hobby, Miller. I use some pretty pricey ones, the Kolinsky Sables. I use Da Vinci and Raphael. Winsor & Newton Series 7 is also good. And yeah, practice also is key, right? The more you paint, the better you get. Just flat out. It's true. Let's see here. I like how this is turning out, guys. I think I like it. I'm going to add a little bit more of a highlight at the inner part of these little eyes. It's going to help to define those spaces. Or practice. Oops. Yeah, there's no perfect. There is only I am happy. You should aim to enjoy the model. Which is not to say that you cannot aim to do your very best. I mean, I aim to do my very best on competition pieces. And I spend a lot of time in those cases tuning them and working on them. Today, later, guys, on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/paintingbag, we're going to be working more on Templar. Speaking of models that I'm trying to do a very, very, very good job on. I haven't decided what we'll work on yet. I was working on just kind of like looking at the cloth and seeing what I could do with it last time, but I don't know that I want to do cloth today. I haven't decided if I want to work more on the metal or if I want to kind of maybe block in these feathers or, you know, maybe get this area kind of cleaned up. You know, there's a lot of things we could do. We could also work on her gauntlet, which is only, you know, partially done. Although I kind of like this right now because it really shows, like, it looks like an illustration here because I haven't added all the colors and it looks more real here. So yeah, that's later today at about 4 p.m. Central before Reaper Live. We always raid Reaper at the end of the stream. I do a 2-hour stream on Thursdays on my own channel, and we work on really high-end stuff. I mean, I would glaze it with a gray if you wanted it to stay pretty loud, or a pale blue, depending. Glaze it with the underlying color, Francis. Like, you could do it. It's just, the problem is that white has no shadows or highlights. So you really need to shade it with something. Yeah, I know, Dizzy. She came without one, actually. I got her arm. So you should actually, like, look at me as the benefactor who restored her arm to her. Have fun, Trey. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, see, I do not like this dark white. If it's silver, it will have a lot of white in it. But it lacks color, and sometimes, like, you still have to shade and highlight it if you've got folds on a surface, right? It's just that if it's a stark white pattern on a dark surface, it will draw the eye away from everything else on the model. So you have to remember that and decide if you're okay with it. Because you are going to be more annoyed than you know if you put all this work into painting a model and say you do a really good job on the face and all people do is stare at the freehand on the bottom of the cloak. It is really not fun. I've been in this situation. Because you don't want people to just look at the freehand and then put the model down because the rest of the model's boring or they just didn't look at it. So you gotta balance it. Thanks, Kay. K-Tinks. K-Tinks. It was just a flesh wound. She'll get better. Yeah, we started out by, for those who are new, because I've gotten a couple of new people here in the chat, but I start out by doing kind of a sketch in white, and then I start filling it in with the colors that I want it to have. So since I wanted this to be kind of a cloak of protection on her, and since her main color is red, I thought I would do red with like orange highlights on this freehand for a change. Because normally I'd do this stuff like NMM gold, NMM silver, but I was kind of sick of that and I kind of wanted it to be a magical cloak. So I decided to go a little bit different with the freehand. And so far I really like what it looks like. So we'll see if I continue to like what it looks like. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Eyes of a cat. Huh. It's up to you, Pendrake. Mess around with it. I always like to say your mileage may vary, just because I have arrived at certain best practices for me, but it doesn't mean that it's best practice for everybody. So even though I share like my opinion with you guys, you can always disregard it, and you should disregard it and experiment yourselves. Come to your own conclusions. Be a critical thinker. Sure, I have experience, but I also have biases, and so I mean, the worst I'm going to say, if you, like, you know, bring it up to me at ReaperCon for feedback, is like, well, it isn't what I would have done, but, you know, it worked for you. And if you really, really do it well, I'm going to be like, wow, I wouldn't have thought that worked so well. Great, good job, well done, you know. So I'm just coming in and essentially where there's a little bit of highlight or where the folds of the cloak would come down. See how this fold comes down here? So notice the freehand is lighter in that area. So I'm coming in here, bringing in that lighter area over this fold because the light would be falling on it. So that I can still keep the suggestion of the folds in addition to like any magical effect. At least you can do the critical thinking part. Haha. Oh, really? Really? Michael said that, Iffy? Wow. That's high praise. Super. Super. Maybe he was throwing Ed or Ron under the bus. That's funny. I could see that regarding the paint line, although I'm not as knowledgeable about some of the new colors, but I do try to give you guys, you know, enable you in your critical thinking by telling you, you know, you shouldn't always accept exactly, and this is just a way I do it, you know, so, or the way so-and-so does it, you know. Bottom line is, are you having fun? Are you happy with your results? Like, that's really the bottom line. That's it. Like, I can encourage you to, you know, to try a little harder or to try new techniques or, you know, enter Master Series Open. But, you know, in the end, is it fun for you? And are you happy with your results? And if it is, and you are, then awesome. Then you've got, like, you are where you want to be in your hobby. That's really the only way to judge it. Like, I love seeing people pushing themselves and reaching heights that they never thought they would reach with miniature painting. But at the same time, I know so many people who are just happy just painting. It's their zen. It's their zone. And they love their gaming models. And it is all cool. Yeah, that's a good idea, Dizzy. I mean, if you have some kind of expendable minis that you don't like that much, it's really good to practice on those. Because, yeah, like you say, then you don't care. And the great irony that I have found of that approach is because you don't care, you relax, and you actually do a really good job. Like, better, you usually do a little better, and you learn a little more just because you're not stressed out about doing a good job because you don't care about the figure. So the irony of that is that you can end up with a great paint job on a figure you really don't like. Just because you relaxed and you didn't stress about it. It is the sad irony of our situation. Alright, so I'm just like coming in with my blue here and there, and if I see kind of some rough patches, I'm going to tighten them up. I think I'm looking pretty good right now. Remember, the dark blue is nice. It'll go right over any blorfs I make, so... Oh, I see where I blorfed and missed a spot. Hold on. The other thing that this fill in is going to do is it might make some of these lines look like they're glowing a little bit because I've got a little bit of a red coming out from them. It's not just the dark blue behind them. Implied in general to listen in. Well, thank you, Michael. He seldom is on the show because he's busy working, but thank you, Michael. I tell him he has my gratitude. I am flattered that he thinks highly of my feedback. Yeah, Great Mouser. Yep, exactly. I hate these models, but they look great. Dang it. Well, good. Yeah, well, he can be a fan of Dragon White. I mean, they're very similar formulations. I mean, there's just a little bit different. So, everybody's got their own, like, shtick. And nobody is right, nobody's wrong. Like, if it works for you, then it's valid. Like, in all of art, that's the case. That's why I don't like artists and people who try to tame art and say there is one way to do this the best, period. And it's never right. It's never true. But yeah, Dragon and Pure are very similar. So, just because I love my original baby, the first white I did for Reaper, part of that could be sentimentality on my part. Just putting a little bit of highlight up there on the upper part of this horn, because again, it's up on a fold. So it needs to be a little lighter. But yeah, it's nice when your friends like say that you actually, you know, have good judgment on stuff. You know you're living a good life then. You should keep it up. There were times when I was younger that I had very poor judgment, so it's very refreshing to hear that I have good judgment now, at least on one thing. Shading a gradient. So, like, if I did, like, a gradient from red to orange on this moon, and I just did it flat, and then I had to go back and shade it with the folds, yeah, I would do the gradient, like, say I wanted to do this red and shade it all the way up to bright orange yellow, so I would do that. But then I would also take my bright orange yellow and bring up this area because it's on top of a fold. And I would bring in maybe a dark red or purple and shade down in the areas where there's a fold. Because if you are not painting it just like it's magic and you want to see the highlights and shadows on the fold, but you have a gradient, you still have to put those in. Yeah, same thing if you were doing this and say you were starting from a light blue gradient up top to a dark blue or purple at the bottom. You would still have to go back in, shade, and highlight. Yeah. You know, as long as all the paints are swatched on the same color, Pendrake, I mean, I think gray, I don't generally do swatches. I just do dots, but I also have stared at this paint in buckets for 17 years, so I don't really need to swatch it to know what color it is. But I think you should just at least be consistent, because remember, your background color is going to change the color that the paint appears. So whatever you do, just be consistent with it. And remember that if you use a white backdrop, it's going to make all your colors look darker. And if you use a black or a really dark backdrop, all the swatches will look lighter. But remember that when you're painting a mini, that's going to happen too. Like the fact that I've got, dark colors here. Once I cover up all this white, this light blue is going to look really light. Even lighter than it does now. Because right now, it's got like white here behind it on the palette. It's got white right here. So you've got some comparison. Your eye is going to adjust. So I think you probably don't want to overthink it. But if it were me, I would make sure that you swatch all in the same material and same color. Oh yeah, Iffy, my dreams of my latest dreams are house hunting dreams. Cuz anxiety. And it's not even anxiety for me, it's that I know David is anxious about it. So like last night I definitely dreamt about house hunting. But yeah, I don't dream about paint buckets anymore. It's been a few years now. Like it's been David and I have been dating. I moved here. It's been 2 years since I was really, really doing a lot of lifting in the paint department. I think when you're looking at swatches and relative, like, stuff, and I don't know, I saw Rhonda just did a thing on this, and I haven't gone and read her blog post about it, but she had some tips. But for me, if you're going to swatch, and I've done, when I did swatches for, the one time I did do swatches is when I was developing a new line. So when I did Bones and when I did Pathfinder, I had a big sheet of watercolor paper that I gridded. And then as I finished and finalized every paint, I put a swatch down so that you could look at the entirety of the sheet of watercolor paper and see the whole line. And what that did for me is it let me relatively like see like holes or like what, if I had a lot of purple, if I had a lot of blue, if I was missing a bright red, that would instantly, yeah, it's been 2 years, Effie. I moved here like April last year. And before that, for a while, the pandemic was coming up. Like for a month, I had worked from home before that. And even before that, my back had gotten bad enough that Sadie was taking over. And we knew that I was going to be moving. So essentially Sadie was taking over more and more. Both because my back was having issues and because Sadie was she needed to be trained. So I was teaching her stuff. So she was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So yeah. Yeah, Grey Mouser, we can't move because of David's job. And also David really likes it here. It is a big investment for sure. I understand why David is stressed about it. But we're fine. If we don't find a place, we really like our apartment. The only problem is I can't have a dog here, really. So, I mean, if we're here for another 2 years in this apartment, we're here. It is what it is. We're not like in a super hurry. And yeah, what I do is I look at the average price out here. Mouser, like I look at the price of homes out here and then I think about what you could buy in Texas for that, right? Because that's my latest state where I was. And Texas houses are so much cheaper. Or at least they were. I guess they're inflating with the current market along with everybody else, but it's just amusing. I always say, I believe I've said previously on stream that you could buy, for what you pay here for a house, you could buy a castle in Texas, and you could have a mother-in-law castle or a granny castle on your land and still have money left over. Oh, nice. Yeah, ours has a lot of natural light too, Dizzy. I like it. And we have redwoods right outside our window, outside of our balcony. So we really like where we live, so it's not like we're in a hurry. Really, we're kind of waiting for the right thing. Yeah, that's pretty much like, I think it's very comparable to Texas, Mouser. Like, I think we paid a little over, we paid like $220 American for our house in Texas. Brand new. There are still places where you can get houses that are nice and relatively inexpensive, as long as you obviously are making enough money at whatever job you have there. Still, it is pretty crazy. My parents built our house that I grew up in for $30,000 back in the 70s. $30K, guys, to build a new house. Like, do you remember that? Like, some of you were old enough to remember that, and some of you, like, are like, what? That's fiction. Oh, yikes. Yeah, Dizzy, no joke. I would be in a hurry to move too. Yeah, I've lived in kind of dicey places like that in my past as well, so I totally get it. We live downtown Mountain View, which is a very nice city, so it's not... We have homelessness around here, but I haven't seen any, like, drug violence or anything. I haven't lived in a city before, really, other than Madison when I was in college. Right, exactly. Yeah, my parents had a really big lot, too. They're looking at selling their house now, though, and they probably can get over $300,000 for it in the current market. I look at building a house for $30,000. I'm like, whoa, times have changed. And of course, back in those days, that was a lot of money, right? Back when cars only cost you $5,000. Hey, Neural, thanks for the resub. 20 months. Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, exactly, Dizzy. Exactly, right? That's about right. That's how the inflation has risen, or how the everything has risen. All right, so that's looking. Yeah, I remember. Was it you? If you said it kind of looked like it was like had sparks or fiery bits, it kind of does. I like it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see, basement. We'll see. I'm very curious. Like, I've never been actively involved in the housing market. As much as I kind of, David and I talk about it a lot, so, like, now I guess I'm more aware of it than I ever was before. So it's an interesting thing. Because this isn't a housing bubble like our other housing bubble back in the late 2000s. Because it's not fueled by the same thing. It's very interesting to watch. But yeah, we may just wait, you know. We'll see. We really like where we live. It's right near a downtown district with a lot of restaurants and just walking distance, right? So it's really nice. So we are definitely not in a hurry. And like I said, I'm kind of, even though I miss Kiri, and I miss having a dog, I'm pretty happy at, you know, the level, you know, we have time together now. We have, like, the freedom to go off and do trips, so I'm going to enjoy that. So just putting a little bit of a highlight, and I kind of morphed that up. Kind of blurfed it. Well, I'm going to just go all in on it, and then I'll correct it. Yeah, 15 cents candy bars. I remember when gas was under $1 a gallon. Yeah. For sure, basement. I don't know what level they're doing that at, though. Like, I don't know if those are risky mortgages like they were. They were definitely risky mortgages back in 2007 and 8. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I don't have a dog in the race right now because obviously we don't own, so the housing market is more like kind of just interesting to watch. Yeah, incomes didn't keep up. That is the problem. Yeah, 89 cents. Yeah, I do remember there was a point in Texas where with my grocery store discount, I managed to get it down to 89 cents at some point in the last decade. I don't remember. I do remember, like, taking a screenshot, taking a picture with my phone that I'd gotten gas for under $1. Because the last time I remembered that happening was when I was in high school. Which was a ways ago. It was a ways ago. Yeah, Max Styles, exactly. I don't think I remember that. Like, I do remember it going, like, I think for much of my childhood, it hovered around $1 to $1.50 where we were in the country. But, yeah, I don't remember when the gas pumps actually had a problem with it. Like, that's funny. It's like not planning for year 2000, right? When Y2K, when computers were not ready to switch over to a year that didn't start with 19. Yeah. It's funny. There we go. All right, I'm kind of happy with these. It looks neat. I think do you guys think it looks neat so far? Do you like it? Oh yeah, the analog price rollers. I remember those old pumps. There was still, you could run into them. So do you think it cool? Do you think it works, the red and orange? I kind of like it. I trimmed down this one so it's more like the one on the other side. There. Yeah, exactly, Dizzy. There you go. Well, it's not what I would have done. There you go. It's not what I would have done, but yeah, I guess. Oh wow, Kaz. Yeah, you gotta finish out a part, Iffy, for sure. Like, you just don't know when you just start it. You're like, well, maybe. But then when you start to add in the other touches, then often it'll change. It'll either change for the better or the worst. But here on our back, we're going to have the crystal up top, and we'll have the glass thing here. But otherwise, it's pretty featureless back here. So having an intricate design for people to look at raises the level of interest in the model. Yeah, well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Big Apple, is it ties into the dress colors. And it's not just all this big blob of blue up top then. It helps carry the red up a bit. So, yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's I wanted to do something different. And sometimes you'll do that. Sometimes, after you've painted a lot and you kind of get into a rut, right? We all get into a rut where we love a certain color or color combo, or we're doing tons of gold NMM or whatever. And then you just kind of get to this point where you're like, I want to change. So you go off and you try something different. And, maybe you don't like it. Or maybe you get lucky and it works. And in this case, I definitely, honestly, I haven't ever tried to do this with freehand before, but now that I've done it, I like it. I like those Killican, those orcs. I used to have an orc army. I think their vehicles are the most fun. So you can do all sorts of rust and crazy colors on them. I think I need to, oh wow, we forgot our stretch break. Well, I'm gonna thin my paint. Last time I looked at the clock, it was like 10:33, and I'm like, oh, I'll do it in 5 minutes. And somehow we lost like an hour, and we're almost to the end of the stream. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to block in the red on the rest of these areas, and we'll start wrapping it up, guys. Since we started pretty much on time today. Just a little late, I think, 5 minutes. Interesting, Big Apple. Yeah, I tend to go to art galleries these days, because David and I really love art galleries and art museums. And we'll almost always see a painting that has an interesting color combo. Or an interesting lighting effect. But magazines, glossy magazines with pretty ads, are definitely another valid thing. I think when I was in art school, they told us to pick up Vogue, which is pretty much the female version of GQ. Yeah, plaid will at least get you into the practice of doing like lines and crisscrossing lines. Not so good for curves, obviously. But it's definitely good practice for control. Any kind of thing like that is going to help your freehand. Doing eyeballs will help your freehand. Anything that gives you that little extra additional edge in brush control. Oh, cool. Almost got this blocked in. Any other questions as we near the end of the stream? I hope you guys have fun today. I had a lot of fun with you today. Hanging out, painting freehand. So tomorrow is Lisette. We'll continue with the freehand on her. We may actually like do the yellow on the back of her dress because I didn't really do it. And we need to do it if we're going to put freehand back there as well. So I think we'll be painting yellow tomorrow and doing continuing to work on that freehand in the front section of her dress. We might do some highlighting on her greens, on her corset. I don't know. She needs a lot of highlighting. Like, we really have only blocked in a lot of stuff on Lisette. She is far from done. There we go. So we've got the red blocked in so that we can keep going on it. But I am very happy. This definitely looks like a magical cape now, which is what I wanted. So I think that was work. So what we did today was we talked a little bit about like the color choice of why we went this way instead of like NMM gold or silver. The sketching in, why white is a very distracting sketch, but then when you put colors over it, it just enables you to get nice crisp lines in your freehand. Talked a little bit about why this and not something else. Answered some questions. Yeah, we just generally hung out. We talked about child and dog training and housing. We talked about things that had nothing to do with awesome freehand, but I still had fun doing it with you guys. So thank you very much. Today is Thursday. So we have, is it Sadie? Do we have Pinning Platinum anymore, or is it just Reaper Live later? They're in the midst of planning ReaperCon, and also they're in the middle of Kickstarter fulfillment staging, Wufu. So are you emailing business at Reaper Mini? That's Adrienne, so she'll get to you as soon as she can. You could also email questions at Reaper Mini, just to kind of see if they, but I'm betting, because they're starting Kickstarter fulfillment, plus there's ReaperCon planning. I'm pretty sure they are all slammed. Otherwise, try those two emails. Oh, that's right, Crafty Creative. I keep forgetting. I need to add that to my note up here. I've got my note of different shows. Thank you, Quindy. Yeah, no problem, Wufu. We really do try to have great customer service, so I'm sure someone will get back to you. I have faith. So try those two emails, and yeah, it's see if they can get. They're probably just when we do Kickstarter fulfillment, because it's zillions of models. Everybody gets on deck. Even the owners come out and fulfill Kickstarter. So yeah, there can be some slide there. So yeah. All right, Sadie Spin Saturdays. Okay, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along. This has been Anne. This has been Anne doing freehand. I hope you all have a lovely day. And we will, obviously, Crafty Creative at 2. And I'll be on my own channel at 4. And then we'll have Reaper Live tonight. It's going to be a great Reaper day. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.